With the 2024-25 League One campaign slowly coming to a close, in today's video we're going to go through the entirety of the 30-man Mansfield Town first team squad and decide whether each player should be kept, sold, loaned out or have their contract exited before the start of next season. The Stags are currently 8 points above the drop zone and they are a long way away from the playoffs, well over 16 points away. So I think it is pretty likely they'll be playing at League One football next season. There's a lot of players who are out of contract with the club, a lot of aging players as well, and if Mansfield are to develop and kick on for next season, I think they're going to need a bit of a bigger rebuild this summer than what they did do last summer under Nigel Clough. Let's waste no further time and get straight into it. If you do want to enjoy today's video, then don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. 120 likes on today's video will be massively appreciated. Don't forget to get your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree with my suggestions? Which players do you want to see kept and which players do you want to see be released? But here is your confirmation then. Mansfield 17th in the table, 8 points above the drop, and they are, off the top of my head, 17 points off the playoffs at this moment in time. They had a great start to the season, then a pretty terrible start to 2025. Obviously recently, just before the international break, they did finally get that win over Barnsley. But here is the Mansfield Town 30-man squad then, including players currently in on loan, out on loan, all that sort of stuff. So keep category is either don't sell them or give them a new contract, maybe try and get them back on loan. Sell is the category for players who are contracted for next season and I don't think should be around. Loan, again, pretty self-explanatory, either given a new contract or players still contracted for next season who I would send out on loan. And contract expiration, any player who's out of a deal with the club this summer who I don't think should be retained. And there is a lot of them players. Now, any information taken from today's video regarding contracts will as always be from Transfermarkt, so if there is anything wrong, then I guess you can really blame them. Near enough everybody has an actual contract date, but there is certain players like Owen Mason, Stephen McLaughlin and Stephen Quinn who don't have official dates on when their contracts do expire, but I'm going to assume that they're all going to expire this summer. Let's get into it. Starting out firstly then with goalkeeper Christy Pym. Now he's been with the Stags for a fair number of years, obviously out of contract with the club this summer, joined from Peterborough, I think was originally on loan, then signed on a permanent contract, now 29 years of age, and if I'm being completely honest, I think his contract should expire this summer in my personal opinion. I don't think he'll be wanting to stay around as a second choice goalkeeper, and I do think there will be better options out there in my personal opinion. He has had a few games this season where he has dropped a few errors. Lincoln away is a big one that does stand out for me in my opinion. If you do keep him around, I just think if you're keeping players like Pym, and we'll come on to a few more, then you want in, again, around just about avoiding relegation type of season. I know obviously 8 points is a bit more comfortable, but I think if Mansfield are wanting to push on for that top half next campaign, they've got to be strict with their contract deals that they do. And for me personally, I think you can improve on Christy Pym. Next up then is Fraser Blake Tracy, I do believe, obviously signed from Swindon in the summer, contracted with the club until next summer, and he is a player who will be looking to keep around for next season. Unfortunately has had a fair few injury problems this season. I think isn't actually registered with the squad at the moment. Next up then we go to Jordan Rhodes, obviously currently on loan from fellow League One side Blackpool. His loan is set to expire this summer, now 35 years of age, and was obviously came in to replace Lee Gregory as he obviously did pick up that injury that kept him out for the remainder of the season. Hasn't really hit too many heights. I think he's only got 1 or 2 goals so far, so for me personally he's not a player who'll be looking to keep around for next season. I think there was a period in time when Mansfield did a very good job of recruiting them 24 to 27 year olds on quite longer term contracts, likes of Louis Reed, Bailey Cargill, Davis Keeler Dunn, whereas recently they've gone more down the Nigel Clough approach to recruitment, signing them 30 plus year olds and kind of players who've been there and done it. Jordan Rhodes, though, hasn't really come in and done it at Mansfield, so he is a player who I would be looking to release. Next up then is Lucas Akins, obviously very versatile, but now 36 years of age, out of contract with the club in the summer, and he's a player who will be looking, again, to see his contract expire. He's an okay-ish option, but I think there has been too many games this season where he has cost Mansfield points. He's missed some big chances, missed that absolute sitter away at Burton from the penalty spot a couple of weeks ago, and it was an absolutely terrible penalty. Didn't even hit the target with it. And I just think, again, Mansfield, if they're looking to kick on, looking to finish in that top half, I think the wages that you're spending on Lucas Akins could be then better be spent elsewhere. Next up then is Keanu Bacchus. Obviously came in the summer from St Mirren, I want to say, signed a 2-year contract, 26 years of age, and he's a player who will be looking to keep around for next season. I think he's got a good profile. Started out the season quite well, but recently I think he's found the physicality of the league a little bit too demanding for him. But I think when he's got another full pre-season under his belt under Nigel Clough, I do think he will kick on at next season for me, and I don't think it would be fair really to be looking to sell him already this summer when we're going to see a decent amount of players leave the club with contract expirations. I don't think we should be really selling players unless they're absolutely tragic. But again, we will come on to that later on into today's video. Next up then is Hiram Boateng, been with the club for 3 years, I want to say now, signed I think a 3-year deal from MK Dons in the summer of 2022, is set to expire with his contract this summer, 29 years of age, and he again is another player who I will be looking to just let his contract expire come at the summer. He's been a good servant to the Stags, but I think again, if you're looking to kick on next season, finish in that top half, I think you do need to be improving on players like Hiram Boateng. He's a decent squad option, but he's probably on at decent-ish money, and I think he probably is now League 2 standard. 29 years of age, so it's not like he's a player who's really going to get much better, not really going to develop his game all too much, and I think probably a step down into League 2 is where I see Boateng playing his football next season. Next up then is attacker Ben Quinn, just the one league appearance I think for him so far this season. Did quite well in the EFL Trophy, out of contract with the club in the summer. I think that one is a very easy contract expiration. For whatever reason, he just hasn't been given an opportunity in the league so far this season. 20 years of age, came in from, I assume, Celtic's B team, and just didn't really get much of an opportunity, so I think again it does make sense to see him leave. Next up then is Elliot Hewitt, very versatile, can play centre half or right back, now 30 years of age, out of contract with the club in the summer, but he is certainly a player I will be looking to keep around for next season. I think he's consistent, he's reliable. I think since his injuries come back, and he's been pretty solid since that. In all honesty, I think he's played nearly 30 games so far this season, so it's not like that injury has killed his body, and he's picking up loads of knocks and all that sort of stuff. So for me personally, Elliot Hewitt is a man who will be looking to keep around for next season and be offered a new contract. Next up then, we go to Stephen Quinn. Like I mentioned, his contract length wasn't announced publicly, or certainly isn't on Transfermarkt, but he's now 38 years of age. I think he's only got 1 or 2 goal contributions so far this season. Been a very good servant to the Stags. He's been with the club for 4 years now, but I think now is the right time for his contract to expire, and I do expect him to retire. Obviously, him and Nigel Clough, whether it's been at Mansfield or Burton, they've been together for a very long time, but I do think now is the right time for Mansfield to move on from somebody like Stephen Quinn. Next up then, we go to Bailey Cargill. He's another player out of contract with the club this summer, 29 years of age, and for me personally, he's another one who should be offered a new deal by the football club. I think he's been very dependable and reliable when he has been available so far this season. I think the Mansfield performances are certainly better when he is in the team. He's one of their better centre-halves, can also do a job at left-back as well in a back four, and I think should certainly be offered at least another year by the Stags. Next up then, it's probably the easiest one on the list, Deji Oshalaja, definitely a keep for me. Probably Mansfield player of the season this year. You could maybe argue Lee Gregory because of his goals, but when Oshalaja has been fit and available, either at centre-half or as a holding midfielder, he has been absolutely excellent. A very different type of holding midfielder to somebody like a Louis Reed, but Deji Oshalaja has been absolutely outstanding this season for the Stags. Next up then, we go to George Williams. He was a man who I thought they should have released last summer and maybe kept Callum Johnson. He's been very good when fit and available for Bradford City, but I guess that was probably the problem. He's barely been fit or available. Didn't actually kick a ball for Bradford City until the start of this calendar year. But George Williams, for me, out of contract with the club this summer, 31 years of age. Again, if Mansfield are wanting to push on into that top half next season, he's a player who I personally would be looking to move on, get somebody else better, maybe a bit younger, a bit more energetic to really compete with Elliot Hewitt in that right back position. Next up then is attacking midfielder George Morris. Now, I believe he signed a new 2-year contract with the club in the summer just gone by. He's been with the Stags since 2020. His contract is set to expire next summer. summer. This season, he has got the 1 league goal and 1 league assist, which isn't amazing when you consider that he has actually played in 21 matches so far this season, but his minutes have been limited, just over 1,000 played for him, so he clearly has struggled with injuries so far this season. Now 29 years of age, and he's one that I'm massively unsure on, if I'm completely honest. I could certainly see the argument to keep him. I could see the argument to sell him, because I do think he did very well last season in League Two. This season hasn't quite really stepped up to the play, and at 29 years of age, is he really going to develop? Is he really going to get better? Clearly isn't that reliable when it does come to injuries, so maybe he's a player who you look to sell this summer. It might be unpopular if you do want to keep George Maris. I certainly don't bat against that, in all honesty, but I just think when you factor everything in, his age, his injury record, all that sort of stuff, his goal return, I don't really see a need of keeping somebody like a George Maris around for next season. Next up then is Lee Gregory. According to Transfermarkt, he's out of contract with the club this summer. 36 years of age, but we saw when he was fit and available, he was one of the best finishers in the entire division. Brilliant goal conversion rate. His goals at the start of the season were massive in propelling Mansfield up the table, and I think if he would have been fit for the full campaign, Mansfield would have had a real chance of making it into that top half. It does concern me when I think he has picked up a knee injury at 36 years of age. Will he come back the same player? But if Nigel Clough's on about potentially offering Reece Oates a new deal and he's been injured for the last 3 years, then why would you not give Lee Gregory a new contract? Next up then, we go to Aaron Lewis. He's also out of a contract with the club this summer, now 26 years of age. And I do think he's a player who should be kept around for next season. Very versatile, can play central midfield or right wing back. Will probably do a job wherever you put him. He's got a nice little personality about him as well. I see that quite a lot on social media, and I think he's just a dependable, reliable player. He's never really going to get many goal contributions, but I don't think that's necessarily what he's in the team to do. Very energetic, and he is a player who I would be looking to keep around for next season. Next up then, we go to Will Evans. Again, for me, this is a very easy one. I'd definitely keep him around. Contributes with goals, contributes with assists, off the ball, works really hard, very good presser, can play as a striker or as a left wing back, and at 27 years of age, I see no real reason as to why Mansfield wouldn't want to keep him around for next season. Alfie Kilgore is a very interesting one. Obviously came in to the club in the 2023 January transfer window. Now 26 years of age, out of contract with the club this summer. I think he probably is a player who you do look to just let his contract expire for. I think he's been a good servant before his Achilles injury. I think he was a very good, dependable defender, but post-injury hasn't really come back the same player. I do think he needs to drop back down into League Two to really rebuild his footballing career, because when you're out for over a year, the game develops, and when obviously physically, mentally, you've not been in the game for well over a year, I do think it's clear to see that his level has definitely dropped off. So I do think now is the time to unfortunately part ways with Alfie Kilgore. I do think he was appointed captain by the club this summer. That's certainly what it says on the club website. Next up then, we go to Aidan Flynn. Again, was a very good servant over the couple of seasons that he was with the Stags, but this season, far too many mistakes. I think there's definitely better options that they've got in the squad. There's better options out there. He's probably on big money as well. At 35 years of age, yes, he's very tall, but he never bloody scores from set pieces. I think, again, he's another player who will be looking to let his contract expire this summer. Next up then, we go to Reece Oates. Again, I think has spent the majority of this season injured. If I just have a quick check, how many games has Reece Oates played in the league this season? 4 games, just 1 start. Last season it was just 18 matches. The season before that it was just the 26. Hasn't hit double figures since the 21-22 season, and I think now is probably the best time for Reece Oates to move on. Out of contract with the club this summer, and yes, he got injured while playing for Mansfield, but it's a ruthless business, and he's been a good servant, but I think now is the best time to move on. He needs to step back down into League Two, in my opinion, and kind of go about rebuilding his career once more. Next up then, we go to Louis Reed. Now 27 years of age, again out of contract with the club this summer. He's a player though who will be looking to keep around for next season. I don't think he's quite been as good this season as what he was last year, where he's one of the most important players to the Mansfield team. This season he hasn't played as much of an important role. Again, Josh Elijah's played in there, and obviously two very different types of holding midfielders, but I think he's a good option to have at the base of your midfield, and for me personally, I would certainly be looking to offer him a new contract, especially with him still being 27 years of age, so he's now coming into them prime years. Next up then, I think, is Matty Craig, signed on loan from Spurs in January, and I think has been injured and hasn't really played much. I think he's a good player, but I think now is probably the right time for him to move on and try and find somewhere else, because it just hasn't really really worked out at Mansfield. Next up then, we go to Jordan Bowery, who is actually still listed as a striker on the Transfermarkt website. On the Mansfield website, he is not listed as a striker. He is listed as a defender, which for a number 9 to actually be listed as a defender is enough for him to be released, in my opinion. I'm joking, obviously, that's not the reason, but at 33 years of age, I think that step up into League One has just been a bit much for him at times this season. I do think he has struggled. Again, he's been a great servant. He's been with the club for 5 years come this summer, since signing from MK Dons in the 2020 summer transfer window, but at 33 years of age, I think, again, there is definitely going to be better out there. Being a great servant, but I do think now is the time to move on. Next up then is Stephen McLaughlin. His contract length wasn't announced publicly, or certainly hasn't on Transfermarkt. Again, he's been with the club for nearly 5 years, signed on September 11th, 2020. 34 years of age now, and he's another one that I'm not entirely sure, and I think there's certainly the argument to keep him around for next season. I think he has been quite dependable when available this season. There has also been times like Exeter away where he couldn't even complete a pass, but I think when we are clearly releasing a lot of the squad, his experience might be vital in the dressing room to compete with your Blake Tracy's and your Cargills in at that left back position. So I'll probably keep Stephen McLaughlin around for another season, even if he's not as important on the pitch and it's more off the pitch. I do think his wages won't be particularly high, and again, we're getting rid of a lot of players, so we do certainly need to keep some. Next up then is Caelan Vickers, obviously signed on loan from Brighton in January, and I think it's unrealistic, but if they can get him back for next season, that'll be a massive coup for them. Got a couple of goals, couple of assists, and just technically is clearly a class above. I think he's certainly got a real chance of making it into that Brighton first team. 20 years of age, I do think it is massively unrealistic that they will have him back for next season, but it's worth an ask, really, isn't it? Next up then, we go to Scott Flinders, now 38 years of age, out of contract with the club this summer, but I think I would probably keep him around for next season. He's a very dependable backup goalkeeper. We've seen it at times this season where he has been called upon, and I think he's still got another year in the tank for me as a backup goalkeeper. I think he's pretty solid. I remember when my team Bradford City played against Mansfield in the EFL Trophy, we obviously won that game 3-0, but Flinders made 2 or 3 top saves in that game. So for me personally, I would definitely keep him around for another year. Next up then, we go to Callum McDonald. Has been with the club for 2 years, 27 years of age, but I think again he's another one that I definitely would be looking to release come this summer. Wasn't even registered up until January, played in a couple of the cup competitions and didn't really stand out. So for me personally, he's another player who would be looking to just let his contract expire this summer. Completely forgot about Dom Dwyer. He's not actually on the Mansfield website for some reason, so I have just quickly added him in. Next up then, we go to James Gale, as he is currently out on loan from the football club. I don't know when his contract does expire. I'm not too sure how old he is, but I think a loan move for him next season is one that, again, it does definitely make sense. Maybe try and get him to top end National League, low end of League 2. We've seen that there is clearly a decent player in James Gale. The goal he scored away at MK Dons last season, which I think is actually what he's celebrating in this picture, prove that there is clearly a decent player in there. It's just about unlocking it and getting the right loan spell. I know he's been to a couple different clubs this season, but I think another loan move for him does certainly make sense. Tom Nichols was brought in as kind of competition for Davis Keeler done, I think, last January. Obviously this January went out on loan to Swindon. He's done quite well there. I'm 99% sure he is out of contract with the club this summer, and I do think I will probably just let his contract expire. He's a bit of a journeyman, is at Tom Nichols, but definitely nowhere near the standard for this level. Owen Mason is a player I'm not entirely sure on. I know he has had a couple of loan spells this season. Now 21 years of age. His contract length hasn't officially been confirmed, but I think he's a third choice goalkeeper. Why not send him out on loan? I'm not particularly clued up on somebody like an Owen Mason, so Mansfield fans, let me know down below what are your thoughts on the young goalkeeper. The final player to go through before we get on to the most recent signing, I believe, is Ben Wayne, who I'm not entirely clued up on, in all honesty. I don't think he's played that much so far this season. Let me just double check on SofaScore. He has played in 22 matches, but only 2 of them have been starts, 1 goal and no assist. He's not even played 450 minutes so far this season. I think he's on loan from Plymouth Argyle. Again, a loan move which just hasn't really worked out, so he's another player who will be looking to just kind of let him go back to his parent club come the end of this transfer window, summer, whatever you want to call it. I was just typing in Dom Dwyer there. He's played 2 games, 1 start, no goals, no assists. I think he's just come in to provide a bit of competition and a bit of cover with obviously Lee Gregory, Resorts, them sort of players being out injured at the moment, 34 years of age, and I don't think there was ever a world in which he was going to get a new longer term contract. So there is my breakdown then of Mansfield Town's 31-man squad. Obviously, now we have just added in Dom Dwyer as well. So keeping around for next season would be, is that 7 plus a further 5? So 12 players, selling George Maris, loaning out 2 more. So you'd have a 15-man squad. Once you've sold George Maris, that's a 14-man squad. And now then I would be looking to release 16 players. So keeping 14, releasing 16, selling 1, letting 2 go out on loan as well. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree? I think, again, if Mansfield are looking to build on this season, try and challenge for the top half, they need to get rid of some of these older players, the likes of Akins, the likes of Quinn, Flint, Williams, Bowery, for example, and just get better players in. I think this core up here of Blake Tracy, Bacchus, Hewitt, Cargill, Oshalaja, Gregory, Lewis, Evans, Reed, McLaughlin, Vickers and Flinders will be a good core for them to build around for next season. Again, I think Caelan Vickers staying next campaign it will be a little bit unrealistic. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. 120 likes as always would be massively appreciated. And up the Stags.